It's 8:30 Eastern Time, the only time zone not afraid to have our private messages leaked. That means it's time for C2C Live, brought to you by Campus 2 Canton. It's Matt Bruening. I'm Austin Nace. On a vacant version of tonight's show, we're pretty much just going to talk Penn State and all the things that are going to happen now because of what happened at Penn State. So that's probably the easiest way to put it. We'll also cover our Week 8 Top 25, all that and more, right after the stinger. What can I say? When you get gifted a story like this that just has so many implications, we might be able to fill the whole time here. We'll see, Matt. Otherwise, you and I know each other well enough. We can drag anything out long enough if we need to. Before we get into the Penn State fiasco, guys, I'm not enjoying it, I swear, as a Pitt fan. Totally not enjoying it. If you want to help the show, drop a like here if you're watching us live, subscribe to the YouTube channel, set those notifications on, all that good stuff we ask you to do all the time. Leave us a rate and review if you're listening to us via podcast. And then head on over to Home Field Apparel, guys. Use promo code CAMPUS2CANTON. Get you 15% off your first purchase over there. All right, Matt. And you can probably use that promo code, Matt, because it's looking like I might be winning some bets with you here this year. Look, I actually have to start off the show.
You think so, huh?
I don't like to ambush you like this, but I've had some people reach out and say that you have to answer for your crimes regarding Ty Simpson. Can you?
What crimes?
Say some nice things.
What is it
about Ty Simpson?
He's played like a mediocre college football quarterback. Yeah, there you go. That's about the nicest you're going to get out of me.
Matt, it's okay. It's okay. We can admit defeat sometimes. It's okay.
What am I admitting defeat on? What has he done that's been super impressive?
He's been great.
He's been fine. He's been fine. Let's calm down on the great part.
He's been great. He's been great.
All right, I'll give him better than fine. He's been good.
Okay.
He's been good.
That's all we were looking for. We would have accepted barely above mediocre as an acceptable response.
Then barely above mediocre.
No, too late. Can't take it back now.
Brett what's up, Brett? He's been fine. I don't. So here's what I will say. In fairness, I have not watched the game from this last weekend. I had a lot of soccer. Obviously, as you know, I was at the Colombia Mexico game as well. So I was very busy. I'm still catching up on a lot of the games from this last weekend. So I don't have whatever he did in this last weekend. I have not watched, but I mean, he's been fine. He's been, better than I thought he was going to be, but I don't think that he's been amazing, top 10 quarterback in the league, like some seem to make him out to be. I think he's been fine. He's probably going to be a day 2 draft pick. He's not a day 1 guy, and he's running Kalen DeBoer's offense exactly how DeBoer wants it. That's about the best I'll give.
Sounds pretty great to me. All right. What's not great, Matt? Yeah. Well, maybe some of us find it great. I don't know. Is what's happening over at Penn State right now. Not even the worst thing to happen at Penn State in the last decade. They're losing their head coach, James Franklin, out the door. Fired after 3 consecutive losses in what was expected to be an all-in, chips in the middle of the table kind of season.
Mm-hmm.
I guess let's just start by wondering. Here's the question I want to start with, Matt. Who is to blame actually for this season tanking for Penn State?
I've heard a lot of the possible players quitting and everything else, and I will just go back to that all falls to me on the head coach. All of it. I've heard a lot of people defending James Franklin and saying that hey, look, he did a really great job of rebuilding Penn State and bringing them back into modern times. He took them out of the Stone Age. So what, he took them out of the Stone Age into medieval times because he did not update his play calling in any kind of way compared to what college football is. You got, not you, royal we here and saying you guys, not specifically saying you. have mentioned before that look like the players have quit. But again, I think that goes down to the coaches and even more so on developing these players. They have had decent recruits. And I don't know off the top of my head what James Franklin's recruiting classes have been over the past couple of years, but they've been good. I don't know they've been top 10, but they've been at least top 15. He's brought in multiple 5-stars, a ton of 4-stars. How many of those guys have actually been developed into anything going into the NFL? When have they actually done anything? Go ahead.
I will stop you there a lot. They do probably one of the better jobs in the country at developing some of these guys. I will, as much as it hurts me to say that.
No, tight end, defensive backs. I know they've had a couple run on some edge. That's okay. Defensive linemen as well. But outside of that, who's the offensive player outside of Saquon Barkley? I guess Miles Sanders was decent.
There was another running in that run there too.
I don't remember who, to be honest with you. Saquon and Miles Sanders are the only two that stand out to me that I can remember that were decent for Penn State. I mean, obviously tight end, they've been in the conversation for tight end I guess, for the tight ends that they put into the NFL, but there's been no wide receivers. Quarterbacks have been just god awful in everything, college and NFL wise. And again, I think a lot of that just comes down to James Franklin. I mean, I think you mentioned it on Campus Life on yesterday's show where it was like, you don't know if it's just maybe Andy Koldenicky or if it is Franklin kind of maybe stepping on the creativeness of the offense. I think at this point you have to say it's Franklin because the offense hasn't changed since he's been there. And they brought in a bunch of different offensive coordinators. I don't know how many off the top of my head, but it's not been the same guys. They brought in, and Andy Kotelnicki was supposed to be this guy who came in and had this, innovative offense, specifically when it came to the running game. We have not seen that work out as well. And I don't know how much of that is on possibly the rumors of Singleton being hurt because Katron Allen has looked fine. But I think, again, a lot of that just falls back on James Franklin and his refusal to kind of come to the times of college football in other ways. I think that he has done a really good job. Again, I don't disagree that he built Penn State up. And he deserves a lot of credit for what he has done for Penn State. But, thank you, Nathan. Yeah, Chris Godwin. Okay, sure. Yeah, Chris Godwin was a very good wide receiver. My bad. I don't remember him being good at Penn State, but maybe I'm wrong there. But yes, Chris Godwin.
He was a second-round draft pick. Yeah, he was pretty good there.
So yes, Nathan, if you know any others, I honestly can't think of anybody else. There's one more. Allen Robinson. I don't know if that was during Franklin's.
Yeah, I don't remember how much of that was overlap with Franklin's career.
Yeah, but
to be honest,
I think a lot of that has to fall down on him, and that's why when me and Chris were doing the show last week, I said that I thought he should be fired. And obviously, I don't know if they would have done that had they not lost this past week to Northwestern. But I, as a neutral college football fan, not a fan of or against Penn State, like as Colin is for, you against, I think it's a good thing for Penn State. I really do.
As somebody who hates Penn State and is definitely on the right side of history. So I wished that I had been on last week's show because I didn't agree with you and Chris last week on Penn State. I think I want to start there. I thought it's never good to lose as a 24-point favorite. That's like just objectively, if you do that, you've effed up somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
But in the long range of 24-point favorite losses, I thought that one was at least you could see why it happened.
You're talking about the UCLA loss?
Yeah, you could see why that happened. I thought, they lose that really tough game to Oregon, where I think it especially hurt if they hadn't come back at the end of that game. If they just lost by like 12 or whatever, 13, whatever it was they were down by.
Yeah,
I think it would have sucked a lot less than fighting back, taking the lead in overtime, and then blowing it. So I think that coupled with a cross-country game at UCLA the next week with weird circumstances where they had just fired their whole staff, and so they had a new OC in there, and they didn't know what he was going to run, and he ran something totally different than I'm sure what they prepared for all week, although I don't know what they prepared for because I don't know if they knew what to really look out for. And the one guy on Penn State that they would have used to spy, the quarterback, wasn't healthy, and so they took advantage of it. I mean, it just felt perfect stormish to me. I had Penn State ranked last week in our rankings. I don't remember if you guys mentioned that or not when you guys talked rankings, but I
don't think
had
so.
Penn State ranked. I said, my logic behind it was I just don't think, the UCLA loss sucks, but it doesn't undo all the other stuff that they've done this season. And I think they've been a little underwhelming in the non-con, but playing Oregon tough, and that, I thought it was excusable. And then they went out last week and laid a total egg. So I'm glad I wasn't on here because then I wouldn't look like an idiot come after the game. And I do think this week made me at least understand why they were going to get rid of him. The third loss totally ends the season for them.
Yeah.
They're going to have to rebuild next year anyway. They lose a lot of this roster. I think if you're not necessarily aware of the roster of Penn State, they lose 2/3 of the defense, pretty much all the offensive skill guys. Drew Aller obviously is gone. They lose everything on this team. Mm-hmm. So it does, from that perspective, make sense to do a little bit of a reset. Where it also, on the flip side for that, doesn't really make sense to me is that you have to pay James Franklin a ton of money for a school that's kind of stingy. They don't spend a lot of money like that. I know there's already been jokes and speculation that they've already taken their allotment from the private equity deal and basically squeezed out all the cash they were owed and used it here. Mm-hmm. Maybe not, but it's a lot of money to fire a guy who I think would have landed on his feet next year and been fine. They're not going to be a 10-win team, but I think he would have done whatever and gotten them 8 or 9 wins next year.
Yeah. So I kind of disagree with you on the UCLA thing because I think if you're a good team, I don't care what the excuses are, you find a way to win. Sure. You find a way to win.
Sure.
And I think if you were to talk about, I get it. And, I'm wearing a, USA soccer jersey, Mauricio Pochettino, the head coach of the USA men's team, I believe posted something the other day that culture beats strategy. I don't know that necessarily works as much in college football. I think, strategy, the formations, the offense, defense you're running does matter. I think, as you mentioned, they didn't know what UCLA was running. How many players on UCLA's team start for Penn State right now? How many? Maybe 5. Total, I think Nico probably starts over Drew Aller. I think probably Nico starts over Drew Aller. They probably have a receiver or two that probably starts over what Penn State has. Maybe.
It'd be tight.
Is that
I think they're all similarly talented, the wide receivers between those two teams. Yeah. I mean,
you went out there and you got beat. That's why I disagree with it. I'm sorry. If you're a good team, you figure out a way to not lose that game. I don't know that I think Franklin probably would have bounced back, actually. I don't think that you're wrong. Whatever would happen again, they have a good recruiting class. So obviously that's probably going to change now with Franklin out the door. We've already seen players decommitting.
It's all gone. It's all gone.
It's going to be rough for Penn State next year. But here's the thing. And I was listening to Colin talk about this, and
did you hear the part where he said that Penn State does things the right way, by the way?
Yeah,
it was way too low-hanging fruit for me to get there.
Here's my thoughts on this, Mr. Decker. And again, I'm not a Penn State fan, so take this with a grain of salt. But I think that anybody who has the opinion of, well, you know what, he did great things, and we'll just see what happens, blah 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 blah. It's sad to me. It is sad because I get it. Penn State was not probably considered a top 10 program before James Franklin, but they are now. So why would you not aspire to be more than that? And that's the part that I don't get with all these Penn State fans who are sitting there saying we're not going to be able to do better. James Franklin was fine for what we are at Penn State. Why are you so willing to accept being fine? A lot of these other programs that we talk about, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, sitting at the top of the conference, Michigan a couple years ago, at some point in time in college football, were just considered fine. Then they actually did something about it and made a difference. It became a better university and a better school. Sure, James Franklin took them to a team that is going to be consistently in the top 10, and he deserves praise for that. Again, I don't want to say that what Franklin did at Penn State should be overlooked and talked about as a failure. What he did was a very good thing for them. But to sit here, if I was an Ohio State fan and came on this program and be like, I am so happy that Ryan Day got us to a top 10 program, even though we've only beaten Michigan once in 10 years, which might still happen, and we've only beaten Penn State 0 times in 10 years, but gosh darn it, we look good and we're a top 10 team. Get out of here. That's a loser's mentality. It just is. I'm sorry. It is a loser mentality. You want to win a national championship. I thought it was the whole reason that we're here for college football, besides obviously being a fan of our college, and I'm sure you enjoy watching them play every weekend. You want to see your team win a national championship. So why not go for it? Because again, in my opinion, this is the argument that me and Chris made last week, for those of you who didn't listen, was I think James Franklin is sure a good head coach, but I think he's maybe a little bit above average overall in what he is at Penn State. If you go for it as a Penn State university and you bring someone, Martin posted a couple names in the chat. I don't disagree with any of those names. There's other names that I would add to that list.
Let's read them for the listeners.
Will Stein. I mean, there's been a lot of rumors about Matt Rule from Nebraska, Will Stein, and Eli Drinkowitz from Missouri. I don't know that you leave Missouri to go to Penn State, especially with what he's been building there. Well, we can come back to those names because there's others that I would throw in that list as well. Me and I argued this with Chris last week, and I can't remember what side of this Chris fell on, but why not just go for it? And if it doesn't work out, you're no worse for wear than you are right now with everything going on. And then you can go out there and hire another just a little bit above mediocre head coach. You can hire the Ty Simpson of head coaches and get right back to where you are, just be a top 10 university, if that's all we're rooting for here. But what Penn State has done and where they have come from and where they are now, I just don't see why you don't want to try and push that a little bit further and try to be a team that upsets Ohio State, that upsets Oregon, that upsets Michigan, is winning the Big Ten. Was he have one Big Ten championship in his entire career in college football, and push to try and win a national championship? Because I do think that nowadays college football has become much, I forgot what the word is here. I know Bud Elliott used it recently on Cover 3, but the talent is more spread out among college football. These teams are all coming back to the pack. I don't think that we are going to see these dominant runs we saw of like in Alabama and even in Georgia to a little bit of a lesser extent. What would that have been? Probably 5 years ago, where they won the back-to-back. They were arguably one of, if not the most dominant defenses and team in college football for probably 5-6 years. I don't know that we see that much anymore. So why not try and push that and go all in and see what you can do as a Penn State fan? I don't understand that part of it. Again, I said this last week. Maybe it's easy for me to say that as a fan of a university who is very good right now and doing that. But like, I honestly think if I'm sitting here in 10 years and Ryan Day is now having a James Franklin type career, I would be saying fire him and let's try to do better. I just don't want. We're not in the G5, Austin. You're in the Big Ten.
Here's the difference, man.
Go ahead.
Penn State's not Ohio State.
Sure, but they're better than. They're a top 10 program in the nation, right? That's what the argument is. Or James Franklin got them. How many schools in the entire college football would you put over them?
Like this season?
No, just overall, university-wise, however you want to put it.
I mean, okay, Ohio State.
Sure.
Alabama, Georgia.
Sure. Agreed.
Notre Dame.
Yes, I agree.
LSU.
Agreed. I'm a little bit lower on LSU, but sure.
They always have the potential, no matter what coach is there, to because of where they're situated and everything, the money that they have. And then after that, I think you start getting into discussion. You can talk.
So would you just name 6 schools?
Yeah.
So that. Okay. Sorry, I'm not gonna go back to old Matt who gets emotional and frustrated.
I mean, how many schools have won a national championship in the past 15 years? I mean, it's not that many. It's pretty concentrated.
5, 6.
I would say Texas.
Yeah,
I would take Texas above Penn State. Sorry,
Texas is fair.
Probably Oklahoma.
I think Oklahoma and Penn State are in the same bucket as Colin.
That's fair. I mean, you could argue it.
I don't disagree with you in the past, but we're not in the same college football world even 3 years ago that we are now. We are heading toward a much different landscape, universe, however you want to put it.
I just don't think Penn State's a destination. I think even if you find a guy, I think they're leaving you almost immediately to one of those programs that we just mentioned. Penn State, there's like this big misconception. Penn State has this enormous alumni base.
Yeah.
They don't have that much money. They're very Nebraska-ish in that way. that you would think because of where they've been situated in the history of college football and the size of their fan bases that they have a lot of money, but they really don't. Up until like a few years ago, they had no real NIL stuff. The behind the scenes stuff is not super robust. It's just a stingy alumni base and a booster base. They don't have a lot of money. So I actually think that they're not one of the schools that benefits from the new rules that much compared to a school like Indiana that has apparently about as much money as Penn State does, is what the financials say. Texas Tech has a lot more money than A&M. I mean, I think those are the kind of schools that are benefiting from some of the new whatever in college football. I don't think Penn State's one of the programs that does. And I'll maintain, I think it's really hard to be a dominant power up in the Northeast in today's age. There's just not enough players coming out of here to do that. And then Sergeant BB said, I don't think that's true. I believe their athletic turnover was within $2 million of each other last year. Yeah, Penn State is saying money isn't a problem. Penn State's full of shit. I am pretty sure.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
They just don't have a lot of money. They are pretty selective with where they spend it. I can't imagine that there's a ton left in the coffers after. We'll see what happens with Franklin, because maybe they're not going to owe Franklin anything, or very little, because of that duty to mitigate, and he's got to go look for another job, and we'll see what he ends up getting offered. I don't know what that's going to look like. Maybe they only are going to owe him $10 million, and that'll work out well for them.
So why I agree with SGTBB that money is not the problem at Penn State. Do you know where Ohio State is ranked NIL wise out of everybody right now? I actually don't know where Penn State is. Like 11th. They're not even in the top 10. Like, the money is not the problem, because again, I understand some of this was before NIL became big. Franklin was still bringing in top recruits. They were not producing. That is a coaching problem. If you're still bringing in 5 and 4 stars without having this big NIL backing behind you, what you're saying, which again, I honestly don't know. I was trying to find Penn State on the list. They're at least not top 15. So again, fine. If you want to say that they're not, I mean, Oklahoma State is number 6 in NIL. What are they doing with it? Nothing. Money is not everything.
Because that doesn't even say
24/7 Sports. No, it's just from 24/7 Sports this year. Talking about Oklahoma is right up there. Auburn is 9. Seminoles are 10. I'm trying to scroll backwards now.
Oklahoma State was 6th.
Yeah. Virginia's
who are they spending the money
13. On? I don't know. I'm not reading the actual article. I'm just looking at the teams and scrolling through. So I don't see Penn State on here. Penn State's 25th right now, with Wisconsin, Texas Tech, Washington, and Michigan State. That's the grouping that they're in at 25. So again, a Texas Tech team who, granted, sure, if you want to say, are playing in a weaker conference, dominating college football right now with their offense. My point on that is I do not think that this is a money problem for Penn State. I don't disagree with you. I listen to Campus Life. Never been to State College, right? That's where it's located.
It's a poop hole. Just
so
don't go there.
There's no
reason to go there.
I understand that. But you're still going to, I believe, get players there, because whether they're probably not considered a blue blood, but Penn State is still one of the more recognizable universities in all college football. James Franklin, I don't know that I would say he's a top recruiter, but he was still able to get people there. He was still able to get players there. They have enough money to, I think, still get some guys, whether it's guys going in for the money or not, to swing to Penn State. So then you have to actually develop them and produce on the field. And that is where Franklin has fallen short time and time again. Not on the defensive side of things. Again, as long as I can remember, Penn State has had arguably one of the best defenses typically in college football. I would say arguably no worse than 10, right? So I think the problem has been he was never willing. He always played it safe, right? Like, he was never willing to allow the offense to have risky plays, whatever it is. Again, I remember it was either last year or 2 years ago, Jordan Richards over there with, I think they've changed their name now. I can't remember. It used to be Destination Devi with Ray Garvin. Sent me a clip because apparently the reporter asking the James Franklin question sounded like me. He thought it was me.
That guy tweeted out this week, by the way. Yes.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
He asked James Franklin if he would be willing to let Drew Allard just throw the ball deep, and he flat out just said no. We do not want our quarterbacks to do that. That's your problem right there. College football has changed. You cannot just win anymore with 2 yards and a cloud of dust. And that is the way that Franklin has always wanted to.
Counterpoint, Michigan just did it.
Did what? They didn't win. Okay. Number one, JJ McCarthy, as much as I dislike the quarterback, made some plays in that game. But yes, they did it against a not so good Washington team.
I mean, I'm just saying it is. I had said for a long time that I did not think it was possible to do anymore. In the 100th percentile outcome and circumstance in a given year, it is possible, but it's very difficult to land that plane.
It is possible, but what did Jim Harbaugh allow JJ McCarthy to do? Go out there and make mistakes. And he got away with a couple of them too. There's a couple, if I'm remembering correctly, in that because I'm pretty sure at least Felix and I were streaming, doing a watch along on like the first half. Okay, I can't remember if you were there now. There's a couple dropped interceptions in that first half that might have turned that game for Washington. We'll see. James Franklin would never let.
Game's over.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, game. I'm still haunted by it.
You flashed back to halftime.
I did. I was like, why am I doing this?
I hate to spoil it for you. I bet Michigan's going
to win. It's over. They won. Okay. Son of a gun. At least I got a national championship last year. James Franklin would never have let Drew Allard do that. And that, I think, is the biggest problem here. Again, it has nothing to do, I think, with the NIL or anything else, because we're seeing teams. Again, you just mentioned Texas Tech, right? Like Texas Tech is dominating the Big 12. They were 23rd on the list of NIL, according to 24/7 Sports. And they put a lot of money in. I think you guys were talking about that on Campus Live, or maybe we were talking about this recently on a C2C Live episode of what they've done. But that offense has been really good. I think he has just refused to adapt to the times of college football, and that is what has hurt Penn State more than anything else.
I get, yeah. I mean, the Kotelnicki stuff to me, like him stepping on Kotelnicki and not really letting him, operate his offense. Like, is there not a chance that Kotelnicki was just running what they wanted him to run at Kansas, and like he's not that either?
I'm not saying that Kotelnicki is.
I mean,
good. I don't disagree with you, but I think probably some of that blame has to go to Kotelnicki as well, because we've seen some moments of it. And I think obviously some of that probably has to fall on Drew Allard as well. He's just not developed at all. Whether you want to put that on Allard or Franklin, like I think you can argue it's got to go to both of them in some sort of way. But again, I'll just state what I said earlier. The offense has not changed from the minute the style of play and the way that Penn State has wanted to play football under Franklin has not changed in the slightest. Where at least the coaches who have won national championships have been willing to change. Kirby Smart at Georgia was willing to bring in I forgot his first name, but Monken to run the offense.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Georgia, not only having the best defense in the league, had one of the most explosive offenses in the league with a guy like Stetson Bennett, who I think got drafted in the 4th round. So again, it's not about quarterbacks being good or bad, because they won with Stetson Bennett, who is not a 5-star. Was Stetson Bennett a walk-on?
He was a walk-on, yeah.
Okay.
He had to leave
so
and go
again,
JUCO, and then, yeah. So.
Which is why we at Camps to Canton have argued for a very long time. We have all this data at campstocanton.com. Go look at the coaching metric tools and everything. Coaching matters so much more in college football than it does in the NFL. And he showed that. Nick Saban famously finally did that after I can't remember what national championship that it was, and all of a sudden goes to Steve Sarkisian, and I forgot who came after Sark, but it was Lane Kiffin, who had wide open offenses, and now that is what Alabama has kind of become known more than the defensive side of things that they were. That's my issue with all this stuff with Penn State. I think if Franklin would have been more willing to bring in a Dan Lanning, like would bring in Will Stein, and just Dan Lanning just lets the offense go. As far as I can tell, he don't do anything with that offense. If Franklin was willing to, I think Franklin would still have a job, and I think they'd probably be undefeated, because Oregon has not looked that good. They came back in that game and they looked it. I think that James Franklin would still be there, and Penn State would be arguably one of the top 2 teams in the country. But Franklin refused to let that happen from the minute he set foot on Penn State campus till the minute he stepped foot off it.
The funniest thing about college football is how like opponent and matchup dependent some things are, because I thought, and like obviously just because of what's transpired over the past few weeks, maybe I don't know anything about any of these teams anymore. But I thought Oregon for 3.5 quarters looked awesome against Penn State. Like, just didn't let them do anything. Had them in absolute hell offensively. And then Penn State now is, dead to us, and Oregon looked not good at all last week against Indiana. So then the question is, like, how good is Indiana? Like, it's just so funny how that stuff can unravel. The other thing I will say, because Sergeant Beebe said he let Trace McSorley go DP, meaning James Franklin. McSorley actually has the highest ADOT of any Penn State quarterback over the past decade, which is interesting. I just pulled him up real quick. McSorley had a couple of years. He had in 2016, he averaged about 13 yards, which is ridiculous. They reined him in a little bit the next year. He went 8.5, but then he went over 11 his senior year. Sean Clifford. It's funny. McSorley for his career, 10.6 yards average depth of target. So he's averaging past the sticks every time he dropped back to throw. McSorley was 9.4. So we've got a yard and some change difference. And then Drew was 8.5. Just steadily declining. I think it's just very interesting. I don't know.
What was the Lars for his career?
8.5.
Wow.
So 2 yards less than McSorley, 2 full yards, which is a pretty decent amount when you're talking about that. And Lucky said he went to the game. He lives an hour and 7 minutes away from State College. I grew up about 2 hours from State College, so probably we're not.
He said they were not
from each other.
They were not playing their best, which is I believe. I'm gonna be honest. I did not watch. Yeah, I did not watch the game. I don't know that I feel any need to go back and watch the game at this point. But my thing with this is, again, you just brought up Indiana, and I wanted to bring that up too. Indiana spending $30 million less on their roster than Penn State, and look at what they're doing, and it's a lot of it because of Curt Cignetti. Again, that's my point on coaching matters so much in college football, and it's why I've argued for the past few years that they had to let James Franklin go. I remember arguing last year that Drew, if I was Drew Allar's agent or friend or father, whatever, I'd have been like, brother, ow, sorry, I broke my thumb playing goalkeeper, and I should not have clapped.
Recently,
yeah, I don't know if you can see the bruising on there. It's bad. What? I'm old, man.
Every time that you play, you're like, oh, I blew up my knee. I broke my thumb.
No.
Look how big my ankle is.
I took a shot and like 5 yards out right off the thumb. I stopped it, but it hurt bad. My whole hand's bruised. Anyways, that's not the point of the story. I forgot what I was talking about. Indiana, like, again, what Curt Cignetti has done with that team, and it comes down to the coaching. And that's been my biggest argument. Again, the Drew Allar thing. That's where I was going. I had argued at the beginning, it was either last offseason or this offseason, that he should have entered the portal and gone to a school with an offensive-minded head coach that would have tried to get the best out of him, instead of like, hey, just check it down every 5 yards. Just throw it into these couple little windows and be good to go, because we just don't want you to make a bad play. And I really, truly think that hurt his development, because coming out, I think Allar had some of the most exciting skills, talents, whatever you want to put, to be a possible first-round quarterback. It's probably never going to happen now, and I think some of that is on Franklin.
Well, it's definitely not going to happen because he doesn't have any more eligibility, and I feel pretty comfortable saying at this point that he's probably not going in the first round. We'll see. I'm interested to see where he does end up getting drafted.
Do you think he goes before day 3 at this point? I don't know.
I don't want to say no, because I could see some NFL team just being like, yeah, this was a total cluster over the past few years. He's big. He's got a great arm. Like, there's some stuff here we can work with. I could see that happening on the 3rd round or whatever. So I don't want to say that he's a for sure day 3. I would not take him before that, personally. Yeah. I just don't think he's gotten really any better over the past 2 years. But
no, I agree.
Who knows? All right, we're going to stay on Penn State, but let's switch gears a little bit, because obviously, we were kind of discussing earlier what comes next in terms of hiring replacement, and then what comes next for James Franklin too. Because I am an attorney. That's what I do during the day, but nothing within close to the realm of contract, anything. So I don't know exactly what these duty to mitigate clauses, like how enforceable are they? I don't know. We'll talk about it here in a minute when we talk about him. I'm a tax attorney. So unfortunately, nothing fun or useful. But let's talk Penn State replacement first. I mean, people are tossing out some good names here in the chat, and I think they're basically the names that we hear all across the board, like all the time. I think the line that I used yesterday on Campus Life when we talked about this a little bit was like, sometimes you'll hire a coach and they might not be like as good of a coach, quote unquote, as somebody else, but for whatever reason, the fit and just the spark that they're able to kind of catch, somebody ends up doing better than somebody else would do in a situation. And it seems like kind of what they're hoping for here, because I just don't know that any of these guys are like markedly better coaches. I'd be worried about giving Joe Brady the job because he's never coached as like a head coach at that level, at like needing to build up a program like that. And I think it's going to be some real heavy sledding. Like, they just lost their whole recruiting class. They're going to have to hit the portal hard. Like, can they do that? I don't know. I don't think Cignetti's going to say yes.
No,
you make him say no, but I don't think. I don't see any reason for him to do that. So then you start like, who's available? I just don't know that there's an obvious name, and maybe they could. I mean, the thing is, I don't even think there's like a Dan Lanning right now. Like a coordinator out there who is extremely highly thought of, that is kind of just biding his time for the perfect job to come up. I don't know that there's one of those sitting out there right now at the college level, which I think makes this difficult too.
What do you mean by coordinator who could make it? Because if I'm
Lanning was super highly regarded, and it was basically like he can pick his job when one comes up. I don't know that there's a guy out there like that right now at OC or DC anywhere in the country.
Probably not. But if I remember correctly, like, Lanning wasn't a head coach before being the defensive coordinator, right? Like, he was a defensive coordinator of, again, an incredibly dominant Georgia defense, and then ended up getting that job. I mean, Martin, Brian Hartline would be solely just because you want to try and bring all the best wide receivers in recruiting. That's Brian Hartline's not even really calling plays at Ohio State. Will Stein, I do think, is an interesting one. I just don't know that he would go to Penn State. I honestly don't remember where Will Stein went to college. He's at Oregon now. He's probably getting paid. Oregon is by far the number one team in NIL. I imagine Will Stein is making buckets of money right now. And I think Will Stein is probably, with what he has done over the past couple years, probably the name that everybody wants. So I do think that he is someone, Louisville. Interesting. He is the coach and coordinator that could probably pick his school if he so chooses. And I think we will have a decent amount of openings by the end of the year. So I don't know that Will Stein would pick Penn State. I think of all the schools open right now, Penn State's top of the list. So, like, maybe if they go offer him and they're willing to pay him a decent amount and that's what he wants to do, I think that they should go offensive-minded head coach. And typically that's what you see universities, even NFL teams do if they've got, like, that defensive-minded guy, like the hard – I'm not Chris K. I haven't cussed recently. The hard ass on the players and everything. Sorry. I just had to get my one in. It's been a minute. I haven't cussed in a long time. Who they typically go to, like, maybe the more fun loving, like, players kind of coach, right? Like, they typically go the opposite side of the thing. So I think that they should go offensive side. There's a coach that I would love for them to go get.
Do tell.
That I don't know if enough people are talking about. But what he's done in college football, or do we want to talk about these other, like Rule? Because Rule's getting a lot of, Martin mentions that Rule, who's close friends with Packer, I believe is from, like, the Penn State. He has some connection
area.
To Penn State.
He's coached in the area. He played at Penn State. Like, he's very, I get why he's a candidate. To me, it's not that exciting. As somebody who likes Matt Rule, I remember when he got hired at Nebraska, you and I both were on this show saying, like, we like this hire a lot. Well, I think it's going to work out really well.
Here's the thing with Rule. I think he's very close to James Franklin. He's a program builder, but I don't think he's the one that takes you to that next level, if that makes sense. I agree
with that. Yeah.
So, like, I think you are. For all the Penn State fans who are saying that, they can't do better than James Franklin, if you hire Matt Rule, I think you're not wrong. You just hired a different James Franklin. That's what I think. Sure, you might get, as Martin mentions in the chat, maybe Dylan Raiola and Dana Holgerson, the offensive coordinator, follow you. And that would be somewhat exciting because Holgerson's definitely going to run a much different offense than any Penn State fans have seen. But I don't think that he's much different. So here's the thing. I don't know that they will go with the coach that I think that they should go with, because he's not going to be the sexiest name. He's not going to be the one that if you hire this coach, Penn State fans are going to lose their minds over, which I don't know that Penn State, according to Colin, since they just do everything the right way, maybe they're not looking for the sexy name. I don't know. But in this guy's past couple years in college football, he has been an offensive coordinator. Let me pull this back up because I had it because I was looking at this. He's played wide receiver in college at a high-end school that we've already talked about, actually. He has been a wide receivers coach and offensive coordinator, and now I do actually like Fran Brown, SGT, and we can go back and talk about him.
But I don't know Brendan Marion, I'm going to lose it.
No, not Brendan Marion.
That would be a disaster.
He's a head coach now, but here's the thing. Here's the difference. He has developed one first-round quarterback and another one that's been considered in the first round this season. Arguably running one of the most exciting offenses in all of college football right now, despite, and this might give it away finally, the butt kicking they took last week. Because I did watch that game. No. Good guess, though.
I don't think he was a receiver, but the rest of this seems to check out to me.
Eric Morris. I think you should go get Eric Morris. Let him handpick his quarterback. Cam Ward, John Mateer. There's another one in here, too, that I'm forgetting somewhere. But what he's been able to do...
Drew Messemaker.
Drew Messemaker's a walk-on.
That might be his best job of the group. Yeah.
And Drew Messemaker's been amazing. And we just talked about Stetson Bennett walk-on winning it at Georgia. Look, here's the thing. You really want to innovate. And in my opinion, now I have not watched... I've watched like 2 UNT games since Eric Morris has taken over, like full games. I watched the butt kicking they took this past week on Friday. I don't think that they run any kind of gimmicky offense, so I do think that that could translate to Penn State. It would make it more fun for Penn State fans. Sure, again, I do not think that he's not going to come in next year and win 10 games and take him to the playoffs. But I do think you give him a couple years, and Eric Morris could have Penn State as one of the more exciting offenses in the league. Again, I think his track record with quarterbacks, Cam Ward, what was Cam Ward, a 0-star? That he took into Incarnate Ward?
Because he ran a triple option, whatever offense.
And then took him to Washington State before getting him to a point that he transferred to Miami and was the number 1 quarterback taken. Now, John Mateer. And look, you've been watching the show. I'm guessing by some of the stuff with the Penn State talking here. We got a lot of Penn State fans in here. I was crapping on John Mateer at the beginning of the year if you weren't watching the show to begin with. I've completely, is it 360 or 180?
180.
I've done a complete 180 on John Mateer, unlike Ty Simpson. John Mateer has been amazing, and a lot of that came because of what Eric Morris was able to do. I think Eric Morris would be a great hire for Penn State. They probably won't do it, but I think that's the road you have to go down. I don't disagree with Fran Brown, with SGT is saying, I just don't know that Fran Brown would leave Syracuse right now to go to Penn State. I don't know what Fran Brown is as a recruiter either at the moment.
I mean, he's plucked some big names, but I think the interesting thing was some of the bigger names, and you'll see this, and then over time, it becomes more apparent. There are some of these guys that get labeled as recruiters to an extent, and then you realize like 4 years down the line that the guys that they were getting that were highly rated by the services aren't really gets. Like none of there's a reason why they ended up like that. Who's the wide receiver that I don't like at all in this class that they have coming in?
Oh, yeah. I forgot. Calvin, is it Calvin Russell?
Calvin Russell. I don't think. Did you see his final list of schools? He's, I think he might have a little bit of a fake recruiter label on him right now. I'm interested.
That's fair.
I think that big thing with Morris is I don't know. It's like you have to you're a sustenance farmer that like lives out in the middle of nowhere and like has no contact with the outside world, and all you've eaten your whole life is like the carrots and beets out of your backyard, and then all of a sudden he goes to this place where he's like expected to run this multi-billion-dollar corporate farm, and the scaling. I don't know that Morris knows how to recruit that level yet. There might be a job in between the two before you'd feel comfortable giving him those kind of keys.
That kind of falls down to, though, it's one of those things where if you wait, which I'm fine with, I don't disagree with you, because again, it's a big step up from UNT to Penn State. I'm not disagreeing with that. But sometimes you just have to, if Chris Moxley were here, you got to risk it to get the biscuit. Scared money don't make money. If you don't at least get up there and try and take a swing, you're gonna strike out regardless.
Has there been a big program that's done that recently? I'm trying to think. I don't really think there is. That's done like a total off the wall.
I mean, no, because I was thinking like SGT mentioned Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer's not leaving Alabama. Not unless they were being really bad this year, but I don't know that he would be high up on Penn State's list to begin with. DeBoer was one that he took it wasn't a big step up, but he went up obviously from what was it, Division II.
He went
to
Wisconsin,
Fresno
Whitewater,
State,
Fresno,
and then Washington to obviously Alabama. I don't know that there's gotta been a coach that made a massive jump. Somewhere may not be again as big as UNT to Penn State, which again, I don't disagree with the argument, top 10 school in the nation. But again, sometimes if that's not what you're doing, I think it was the other Penn State fan in here, at least I assume because of the line. Lucky 38. I think Lucky 38 said, go get John Gruden. If you want to set your program back 30 years, go get John Gruden. Otherwise, let's not do that.
I think we just watched a coach who, and I don't, maybe does Gruden have like some very far back college experience at all? Like when he first started coaching?
I'm pretty sure he does. I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't remember off the top. It's been so long that, Nathan has a good one. We have a couple good ones here. So, but it's so far back.
That is a good one.
The Gruden thing would almost be Belichick all over again. Now I know that there might not be to that extent because of all the extracurricular stuff. But
Southeast Missouri State was the only college thing that he did. So
not real. I mean, that was
no,
35 years ago.
He was the Pitt wide receiver coach for 1 year, 1991. There you go.
Did not know that. So there we go. Basically nothing. 40 years it's been since he's touched college. Sig took a big step. He did, but also I think that's slightly revisionist with Indiana because at the time we were like, that's a half step up to the dregs of the P4, and then if he does well there, then he'll go he'll do the DeBoer thing, and it's worked out very well for him.
In fairness to that, though, before we get to the Napier thing, that's how I think this could work. And again, I'm not saying it has to be Eric Morris, but if you can get that coach, I think that Penn State can be what Curt Cignetti has done with Indiana that quick. Because if you can get just a couple names in the portal that know your system like Cignetti did, all of a sudden Indiana has flipped it. And then they've the difference that I think Indiana has done than some of the others is they have built on that success, made it into playoffs. All of a sudden now better recruiting classes. They're putting more money into the thing. Like that can happen very quickly, but you've got to go get, that's another SGT.
This is a very good one. Nathan says Florida's Billy Napier was a big jump from Louisiana. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
That was a really, yeah. Well,
and we kind of saw what happened.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot what did we used to call him?
Sunbelt Billy.
Sunbelt Billy.
Used to.
Yeah.
We're back on it.
We're back on it.
We're back on it.
Yes. Why his name is escaping me for a minute right now here, SGT. What?
I think Golish would be interesting.
Golish is the one that we've talked about for the other two schools, and I agree.
Might be my choice. If you can't get Will Stein or
the only fear I have with Golish is I do think that offense is a little gimmicky compared to what Stein runs and what Morris runs at UNT. That's my only fear. I don't think he does it quite as much the way I'm just forgetting every coach's head.
Josh Heupel is a little more.
Josh Heupel does at Tennessee. Yeah. Yes. He definitely runs a different version of that. And I don't think that they should go get
Bullish runs UNLV. More QB rushing stuff, which I think is interesting. And I think would be a really interesting kind of mashup with the Big Ten, because the Big Ten, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, as I'm just like going through all the schools off the top of my head, doesn't really have a lot of rushing QBs right now. I do think there's something to be said for kind of zagging on that when everyone else, that might give some teams some fits.
And SGT, and if what was it? Lucky 38. If you're still in here, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like those quarterbacks were when Penn State was at its most dangerous, was when they had Sean Clifford and who was the other one we were just talking about? I forgot. He beat Ohio State. I'm pretty sure. Was it Trace or Sean? One of those two beat Ohio State. Those guys had the rushing upside that made Penn State's offense at least intriguing. The problem was neither one could throw the ball worth anything, even though Trace McSorley apparently had an ADOT of 10.8, which is still pretty impressive. Trace, thank you, SUG. Like that could be leaning back into what Penn State had at one point in time. So I would not be against that. Martin, really quick in the chat, says Joey McGuire was basically one step past high school when he got hired by Texas Tech, which is also another.
It was, but also again at the time, like Texas Tech was kind of a
true, yeah, not Penn State, not Penn State, yeah.
So they're a school that's always been a little more willing to do some weird stuff and figure it out. I mean, they had Mike Leach there for years back when Mike Leach was kind of seen as a bit of a crackpot still. So to an extent, like at that level, like everyone, can the air raid work at the Power 5 level? Was still a big thing when he took that job.
I don't know that this is. I guess in a way it makes sense because he was the offensive coordinator, but Ryan Day was not this big named person when he got the Ohio State job. It was all because of Urban Meyer that he got that job.
In-house.
Sure, he coached in the NFL, but he came from Temple and Boston College under, I believe, and he was with Chip Kelly, I think, in the NFL because he has the connection to Chip Kelly. But yeah, I mean, I know he was the offensive coordinator for Ohio State. He was the acting head coach when Urban was suspended as well. I was at the TCU game that they won, but Ryan Day was not a like Ohio State fans knew of him because again the offense was so prolific in a way. But like I don't think that was a guy that like when Ohio State hired him expected was going to do this. Again, I think sometimes you have to go off the beat, but don't go with a name just because they were like. So I saw that they offered Joe Brady. Dear God, Penn State fans, I think we've learned that Joe Brady is not it. I don't know that
he's been doing well with the Bills, but
has he been doing well with the Bills, or is it you have Josh Allen?
I was about to say at some point it becomes difficult to separate those two. So tough to say. All right, let's just real quick. If you had to pick a place to send James Franklin, because as I was mentioning earlier, like I don't know how these do to me. Like I know in theory it says that he has to be actively looking for a job and basically what he gets at the next job offsets like the difference between what the buyout is and what he's going to be making at the next job. Like I understand functionally that, but like, does he interview and just show up and like do the Step Brothers thing where he like farts real loud and show like I don't know how that works in terms of how honest the effort has to be. But
well, I mean, he can also go into broadcasting, right? Which I believe is the thing. Like, and that still is kind of the same thing.
Is he a guy like? Yeah, he's been a very successful head football coach. Like, I'm not saying he doesn't know football. Would he be a guy that I would want to listen to on like a pregame program or like in a studio? I don't know that he like has that personality.
There's been some times I've seen him give interviews that he's been semi-entertaining.
I mean, I wouldn't have said Jay Wright necessarily either, and he's done pretty well on the basketball side of things. So Jay Wright's also retired. So like, I don't know. I got real close to saying the wrong word.
Really that's not even a word. I was like, my God, I really don't like this guy. Woo!
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what else I think could come open. Because I mean, you know where I think I don't know that he would go here, but you know what school if I were them, I would take a swing at him, especially with all the money they're apparently throwing down according to 24/7 Sports, Oklahoma State.
Oh.
I think you could return them, especially with the Big 12. I think that works perfectly for you right there. You might actually compete in the Big 12. Obviously, they have the opening right now with Gundy out. Again, they're top. I think they were 5 or 6 in NIL spent. So I don't think that they would have any issue going and spending money on a coach if they wanted to bring him in. I think that could work out for him. Outside of that, I mean, I was trying to look at his history. I don't think he goes back to James Madison. I mean, he does have time with Maryland, Kansas State, and Washington State. I mean, Washington State hasn't been horrible this year. Maryland and Kansas State are interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Kansas State's bounced back the past couple weeks. I don't know that they're. I was thinking like, man, I wonder if there's going to be some firing going on here in Kansas State. I don't know that it's going to, and probably same for Maryland. I don't know that those, but I could imagine. I could see a job opening up specifically for him this year, where they
I wouldn't doubt
feel it out, and then they're like, okay, we're going to go hire James Franklin. So I don't know that there being a coach in a seat necessarily rules a school out right now from going to get James Franklin if that's what they intend to do.
What SG T said in the chat, I don't think that UCLA would take him, and I really don't. If Wisconsin were to do that, they'd just be shooting themselves in the foot again. UNC, if you fire Bill, I know they just put out a statement last week that they're all in on the Belichick thing. If those two decide to part ways, there might not be a better person to bring in to quickly rebuild USC after what Bill just did to them than James Franklin. So
I think he would do a good mop-up job there.
Okay.
I don't know. If that's what they're looking for, then I think they could do a lot worse than that for sure. I think if that's not how they can pitch it to him, I think they're going to have a hard time finding someone who wants to come in and clean that up. I don't know. Maybe not. Yeah. I mean, maybe if you just offer them enough money and have enough money available to them, then it doesn't really matter. But it's not looking great there at the moment. So
no, not at all.
I don't know. I do think I've heard Virginia Tech passed around as a job that he could take that's open right now. I think that would be really, really interesting. Yeah. I do think he stays East Coast-ish. I don't foresee him heading out super far west unless something crazy pops up. That's just a hunch that I have based on how his career has been the past 15 years or whatever, 20 years. So yeah. That's what I suspect, but
makes sense. We'll see. We'll see. I could also see him taking a year and just kind of, he's going to get paid either way.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe he's not allowed. Like maybe he has to go find a job. Maybe it's either broadcasting or go find a job. Like then he has to go do something. I don't know.
What the
contract said.
Because I can't, for the life of me, cannot remember his name. SGT mentioned it. UNLV said. I mean, he went to ESPN. Mullen went to ESPN for what 3-4 years before going back into coaching. I don't know that Franklin steps out for that long, but I could see Franklin going to ESPN. Whatever. I don't know that he goes Big Ten coverage or whatever. Goes and does it for like a year, and then another job opens up, and he decides to go that one. I could see that happening. I don't think Franklin's done with coaching. I just don't know that like.
No, he's only 55. Like there's plenty of years left there. I mean, granted, I want to be happy to be done working by 55, but
I think that's the American dream for most of us.
I'm also not, if I was a football coach, I might feel differently. So would Penn State try to hire Urban? Somebody said. I don't know. Back. I think just knowing what I know about the administration there, that feels like a long shot to me. But yeah.
Because they do.
I don't know that Urban wants to coach again either.
I don't either. I don't. Not after what happened in Jacksonville. I think at this point you just risk doing so much more damage to your legacy by coming back and failing again. I think you just let it go. Just be done.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a job that would like entice him out. But I don't know that Penn State would be the one.
The only one I think that might. So I don't know if he would even go. I was thinking like maybe like a USC or something that maybe Urban would feel because he is a really good recruiter, and I think he could take advantage of like
when he's allowed to offer money now. Holy crap, this dude's going to be unstoppable. Yeah,
I think if he were a USC could fit. Especially with how good of a recruiter he is in the California area, I think you could turn around USC very quickly. But again, you're risking some possible future violations.
It's open season now. You can do whatever you want. All right, Matt. Is our graphic ready for top 25?
Yeah.
I obviously I didn't watch last week, so I don't know how you guys did this. But we have our top 25 here for the week. Matt, Chris, who is not on tonight, and myself. And here's what we came up with. And I actually I'm going to pull up the raw whatever behind just so we can walk our way through this. But Ohio State 1, Indiana moves up to 2 for us this week.
Yep.
Wait, Ohio State wasn't our number. Who was the number 1 last week? Oregon?
Oh, that's my bad. I messed that up. No, Ohio
you're
State
good. I couldn't remember. I was like, oh, they moved up. Ohio State number 1, Indiana 2, Miami 3. Is that a very clear top grouping for you there, Matt? I mean, A&M's undefeated too, and they've got some pretty decent wins, but nothing quite on the level of what some of these other. Well,
I disagree. A&M beat Notre Dame. I would.
It's tough, yeah. As I was saying it, I was like, maybe.
I would say for me, there's a solid 4 And trying not to sound biased, although my Justin Field jersey is not behind me anymore, so I don't know that people know I'm actually an Ohio State fan. I would say that Ohio State probably is a little bit above everybody else, and then I would put Indiana, Miami, and Texas A&M in a grouping together. I think Texas A&M deserves to be in there.
I do just want to say I've been the high guy on Indiana every week since we started doing these rankings all the way back. I had them 5th through 4 rankings ago. So I would just point that out for no reason at all. And I do have them at 2 this week. Chris has them at 3. I think that's interesting. I think they're closer to 1 than 3, but that's just me. I guess it just depends on what you think of Oregon. But I don't know that I can invalidate what I thought about Oregon because they looked like crap this weekend. Like,
yeah,
how, they could have been Indiana. Who knows? Tough to say. It's what make college football so fun to rank. So we do have those top 4 there. We just kind of mentioned Miami, A&M. Texas Tech is up to 5.
Yeah.
Are they actually the 5th best team in the country? I think it's fascinating to discuss and to think about. And I don't know.
I don't. I think if you were to tell me, like if we're talking about playing on a neutral field, I think that probably Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, maybe even Oregon would be favored over Texas Tech on a neutral field. I think that Texas Tech has had and is playing very good this season. They've been pretty dominant in every game that they've played, but their real only signature win is Utah. Which has been in a good team, but probably not as good as we hoped they were going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe Texas Tech gets Arizona State this weekend, but is that a Sam Leavitt-less Arizona State team? If it is, and that's not as exciting of a win.
Again, because Utah doesn't really have like a signature win, and they got kind of blown out by Texas Tech. It becomes like, is Texas Tech like, how good's Utah?
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe Utah is a lot better than what we think they are now because of that beatdown that they suffered at Texas Tech. And Texas, it's very, very difficult with some of these. We don't have a lot of touch points yet on some of these teams still.
What I think is going to help or /hurt Texas Tech is how that Utah BYU game goes this weekend. As Utah BYU play, they're ranked fairly close in the AP top 25. I think at this point they need BYU to win and continue to remain undefeated until Texas Tech plays them. I think it's in 4 weeks. And then that will be a very signature win because, again, if they beat Utah, I would assume BYU would be ranked. They're 15th in the AP poll right now. We have them 15th as well in our rankings. They stayed the same compared to last week. I think that would be a very big win for them if they were both to be going in there undefeated and honestly lead to probably whoever wins that game locking up a shot in the Big 12 championship as well. So, again, I don't think that Texas Tech has played anybody compared to at least everybody else on this list. Like, again, I think you can go down to Georgia Tech, who has a better signature win on their schedule right now than Texas Tech does. Was that who they beat? Maybe I'm wrong.
That's who it
is. Nah, okay, then you can go to Oregon.
I don't know.
Then you can go to Oregon.
Great sometimes,
because I would still take even though Penn State did just lose to Northwestern, I do think Penn State overall is a better team than Utah.
I have a hard time invalidating, where Oregon, and we're about to get to them here in a second, like because the big thing is now like the P4 teams they've beaten are combined 2-14 against what, and I'm like, I just think sometimes you got to take a snapshot at the moment in time and when some of these things happen, and we can't get too caught up in then what subsequently happens. Like Penn State fell apart. I don't think Penn State now is the same as Penn State 3 weeks ago. I have Oregon at 5.
Yeah.
I don't like this, like a team loses and we automatically have to drop them like 6 spots because the 6 teams behind them won. I've never liked that. I'm not saying that's what you guys did, but to me, I still think Oregon is one of the best 5 teams in the country. I think which is possible, as I've been mentioning for weeks, that Indiana is just really freaking awesome. After as I've mentioned multiple times, that just the absolute butt smacking that they gave Illinois a few weeks ago on national television. Like I don't want to invalidate what's happened there. I think they're a top 5 team in the country. I'm not going to drop them because of that loss.
I think they're in that range. That's fair. I mean, I kind of have them in the same bucket as all those other teams. I think personally, on what I've seen and what they've done on the field, Alabama and Georgia deserve to be over Oregon right now. I think you can make the argument that Texas Tech, Ole Miss do not deserve to be. So, like, I'm fine with you putting Oregon there at 5. I believe I put them at 9, if I'm remembering correctly, and I did have all those schools over them. And again, I did have Texas Tech and Ole Miss over them. Those are the two that I think I would argue maybe don't need to be over them, so I could maybe boost them up to 7. But again, I just think what Alabama and Georgia have done on the field, I think deserve to be ahead of Oregon right now.
I mean, I know because of the parity and the flattening essentially of the power rankings and how this is going right now, if you listen to some of the shows that discuss that kind of stuff, that we're getting some different outcomes than maybe we would have gotten in prior years. This Georgia team is highly flawed. To me, I don't think they're better than Oregon. They have no real pass rush. They can be beaten deep. Their running game this year has not been particularly great, except for just in smash spots. I don't trust this Georgia team right now at all. I had Georgia at 8, which is right where they are, but like I have Oregon ahead of them. And I think Alabama, who's already beaten them, I think those teams are very clearly better than them.
I think that they're closer than you're giving Georgia credit for, because I don't disagree Georgia is beatable, but so I think Penn State is more beatable than I thought they were to start the year. Oregon. I think Oregon is more beatable than I thought they were to start the year.
You said Penn State, right?
My bad. I meant because Oregon.
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah. Well, I probably did say Penn State because I was going to say, because they did allow Penn State to come back in that game. Indiana, in my opinion, I got to see a decent part of that, controlled that game in Autzen Stadium too. That's the thing. Like if that was in Indiana, I would give Oregon a little bit more credit. They did that at home. And they got beat pretty bad. And then if you go look at their schedule, there's really nothing else on there. Again, I want to give them credit for going into I guess we're calling it Sad Valley now, and beating Penn State in a whiteout. That is a big one. But they showed a little bit more being beatable than I thought they showed earlier in the year. So I think those two are fairly comparable. I mean, again, say what you want about Georgia. They do look beatable. They hung in there with Alabama, who, according to everybody in the GOAT, Ty Simpson, is one of the better teams in the country now. I mean, they were able to come back and beat a Tennessee team that I think is decent. We have them ranked up here in the top 15. So, and they did not look great in an Auburn team that I think really Jackson Arnold gave that game to Georgia. We'll find out again about them this week because they play Ole Miss. And that's the same thing with Ole Miss. Like, I don't really know who Ole Miss is, but I think we're going to find out a lot about Ole Miss this weekend when they play Georgia.
Yeah. Ole Miss is one, like this week threw me for a loop a little bit on them because of how bad they looked. And maybe it's just, I don't want to react too much to a win, because we talk about this all the time. You guys give me crap when I will give credit for tight losses. I don't want to kill somebody for a tight win either. A win's a win. But Washington State's been so bad this season that just was shocking to me that game was even close at all. And I know there was some like turnover stuff, like the yardage gained and stuff did favor Ole Miss, but it surprised me a little bit. So
if you want me to be honest, I think that is 100% one of those classic look ahead games.
Yeah, very possible.
I think Ole Miss is,
the fact that you win it, you feel better.
Yeah,
at that point.
I think everything for them is riding on these next 2 weekends for them. They get Georgia and then Oklahoma. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think the last time me, and Chris were together about how or I think I talked about it on the tailgate. I'm sorry that I felt like Ole Miss is more fraudulent than others, but I actually picked them to win the game. This might be the year that Lane Kiffin shows us that he's not quite as fraudulent, at least as he has been in the past. So I think it was a little bit of a look ahead game, in my opinion.
11 through 15, here we have Oklahoma, Tennessee, Louisiana, Notre Dame, and BYU. It's an interesting group. I think I had a really hard time actually debating between. I have LSU and Notre Dame at 13-14. Actually, that's exactly where I have them, and I was very tempted to put Notre Dame above LSU. I think it as I sit here think about it, I probably should have, because I've been the big Notre Dame is much better than. I think I've been higher on Notre Dame than everybody every single week too. Them, Indiana, are really the two that I've been like. I just think they're better than everyone else.
Yeah, I would like Notre Dame to be higher than LSU just because I think Brian Kelly is also a fraud. And how sweet would that be if Notre Dame played LSU in the playoffs and Notre Dame won? I think I think the Golden Domers would be very happy to see that happen. Yeah, I mean, look, Notre Dame has looked good ever since those 2 losses. They've been climbing up the rankings here. I think that's a fair little grouping. I think you could go anywhere from Georgia Tech probably down to like Missouri. I think Missouri deserves to be mentioned in those schools. I mean, they played Alabama very, very tough this weekend.
I have
tough
Missouri
loss for them.
I have Missouri a decent spot, 3 or 4 spots ahead of BYU. I agree. Okay. I would put Missouri above them.
I don't remember where I had Missouri ranked. I don't think I had them above. I had them 2 spots behind BYU. So, but I don't have an issue with them being ahead of them.
We've talked about this. Who do you think, like, in terms of like fraudulent teams? Like this was like Illinois was super fraudulent, and then we talked about, I forget what the other team was, but I think BYU right now is like just fraud of all frauds, just sitting there smiling at us in the middle of this grouping. There's no ceiling on that team right now. BYU for me.
I mean, I guess. I mean, they've. I was just gonna take a Zach Wilson shot. I think they've been fraud since Zach Wilson's been there. I don't think that they. Well, again, as I said earlier with Utah, we're gonna find out. They play Utah this weekend. Like, we'll find out who BYU really is this weekend.
That's a big rivalry too. Is that Holy War?
Yeah. Yes, it is. I believe so.
Such a cool name for a rivalry. Missouri, Utah, USF. I am a big USF proponent. Virginia 19, USC at 20 after their thumping of Michigan this week. I would rank USF higher than this too. I would.
That's fair. They're
going to be the G5 team, right?
I think so. At this
point, they play Memphis, but I don't think Memphis is that good.
Yeah, I mean, I think Memphis has been good enough to. They've been ranked in our top 25 for the past couple of weeks. I think they deserve to be up there, but I think what USF really needs is BYU. I'm not sorry, BYU, Boise State to bounce back a little bit and possibly end up the year at least close to being ranked, because they don't, outside of Memphis, which is in next weekend. They don't have anybody else really good on their schedule. So yeah, if they win that, I think that they're likely locked in as the G5 contender for the playoffs. As long, I think they could probably, at that point, if they beat Memphis, I think they could lose a game throughout the rest of the year and still end up as the G5 contestant to go into the playoffs. I just don't know who else it would be.
I will say I don't have Memphis ranked.
Oh, okay.
I don't. I don't agree with them being in the top 25. I think they're probably closer to like the 35th best team in the country. I just don't. What they do, they beat a really bad Arkansas team that I guess is like hung in a few games, but for the most part just isn't very good. And they should have lost that game. I mean, I don't know.
I think it's for me, it's just because they've dominated every game they've been in. I'm sure, except for that Arkansas game, but the offense has been phenomenal. We talked about it probably a couple of weeks ago on C2C Live. Brendan Lewis has been absolutely amazing for them offensively. That Memphis has just been one of the better offenses so far this year. So for me, I think that they deserve to be ranked in the top 25. But
all right. Any other final thoughts on this grouping? Texas creeps back in this week, which I think is valid.
Yeah. I mean, you beat I think we had Oklahoma, top 5 last week. Even though probably the score doesn't necessarily show it, I felt like Texas, for the most part, dominated that game. I think some of that does come down to Mateer was clearly not healthy, but it is what it is. They played on the field. Texas won. I think they deserve to be ranked up there. I don't know how much higher they get. I think they have Georgia in a couple weeks. So that if they are able to beat Georgia could help, because I actually think they're still technically in the race to win the SEC.
What was I just going to ask you? Mateer, I think he's fine from a health perspective. I think he was worried about hitting the hand again. I think he wasn't mentally locked in, because it wasn't like he was making like physical mistakes. Like it wasn't like the ball was fluttering on him. He was, couldn't hand the ball off with his right hand. He was handing the ball off. It wasn't anything like that. I think he was worried to get hit again.
It's possible.
I think that was it was messing with his head a little bit.
I think again, it's one of those.
Is he going to be feeling that way again next week? I think it's a question.
I think it's one of those things where, which I get. I think Oklahoma was in a lose-lose situation, right? I mean, look, I am a big proponent of Michael Hawkins. I just don't think that he's an Oklahoma level quarterback. I think they knew going into that game that there was no shot they were going to beat Texas with Michael Hawkins more than likely. So they did, I think, kind of rush John Mateer back. And whether it was healthy or not, we've seen that before too, right? Like sometimes that mindset is just as important as being fully healthy. And so if he was a little bit worried about it or didn't necessarily trust it and was worried he's going to get hurt, like, you can't play your game. So I'll be interested to see him in Oklahoma's got a lot of tough games coming up. So if Mateer is not quite there, ready mentally, or still possibly injured, he's really going to have to hurry up and turn that around, because if Oklahoma wants to make the playoffs, I mean, they get South Carolina this week, then it's Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, LSU. It's nothing but ranked versus ranked versus ranked versus ranked versus ranked the rest of the season.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight's show. Make sure you're checking out everything over at campus2canton.com, everything on the podcast feed, all that good stuff that we tell you every week, guys. We'll be back next week. Good night. Good luck.